actually in Denver today, and he was kind enough to join us. And Paul, thank you for that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's a pleasure as always.
Well, I was reading today in the News and Observer that, and I think this might have happened while I was gone, but that WRAL, the local TV station, put some things up on a webpage, a database, that you didn't particularly, and your group didn't particularly like. Can you fill in the blanks for me?
Well, yes. A little over a week ago, they did a piece. The article itself was reasonably well balanced. It talked about how rural areas have slightly higher rates of concealed handgun permit holders. However, within that article, they had a searchable database such that you could determine how many people on a given street had concealed handgun permits. And although they maintain that they weren't, I guess, publishing enough information to actually identify individual concealed handgun permit holders, the fact is that early on they actually did release some full addresses.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yes, they did. Apparently,
wow.
Steve Hamill, the general manager of the station, told me that there apparently had been a software glitch for the first 24 hours, which actually released full address information. Even after that, it released trailing address information like apartment numbers and whatnot. And what's more, if you look at the database on small streets where there are relatively few houses, it becomes relatively easy to figure out which homes on that street actually contain firearms. Now, the problem with this, of course, is that you're essentially creating a searchable database for criminals to go and burglarize homes for firearms when nobody's at home.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but listen, I'm a concealed carry. I feel like a sexual predator or something. Well, am I as dangerous as those individuals? What's going on here? Where did this database come from?
Well, you're kind of that's an interesting analogy, because that is exactly one of the analogy one of our members made, namely that these sorts of partial address, find the sex offender in your neighborhood. This has been published by and done by newspapers and media outlets before. And although I don't think it's fair to say that WRAL is trying to equate concealed handgun permit holders with sex offenders, the fact is that it leads to fear-mongering, as though the concealed handgun permit holder in your neighborhood is of some sort of threat to you. The fact is that this information is useful to no one. Concealed handgun permit holders have spent 16 years proving themselves sane, sober, and law-abiding. And frankly, whether I have a firearm in my home is nobody else's business.
Well, you talked to the general manager, and you want this database taken off their website. It's still there because disappointingly, I found that on my street. I'm the only one with a concealed carry. I would have liked to have had more, but you know what I'm saying there. But what did he say? How does he respond to your concerns?
Well, on the one hand, he was not entirely unsympathetic. I think WRAL in the past has been pretty balanced overall on gun issues. We really don't have a problem with their coverage overall, but I do think he was led astray by this particular reporter on this particular issue. And their feeling is, well, this is public information, so we can put it up there. Well, the fact is, it may be technically public information, but the reality is, to get it, you would have to write to the State Bureau of Investigation. They would send you then a text file, which you would then have to interpret. It's not exactly the same as creating a searchable database for criminals to find guns to steal.
So this wasn't where he linked to a web page that already existed. This took some work to put together.
No, they actually apparently hired a firm to create the searchable database, and consequently it was, in fact, their software error, which initially actually released full addresses for concealed handgun permit holders.
Well, I suppose I saw in the paper they were standing on the First Amendment, saying, hey, listen, free speech. What's your response to that?
Well, I mean, it is their First Amendment right to express this sort of thing, but by the same token, it's our right to withhold, I guess, our advertising, our money from their advertisers should they choose to do this. Grassroots North Carolina has had a long-standing policy that if a media outlet discloses the names, addresses, or private information of either concealed handgun permit holders or handgun purchase permit holders, then we would reserve the right to take economic action against the station and any of its advertisers. And that's precisely what we're doing.
But I guess, I'm trying to understand what the newsworthiness purpose of this is. Did you get the sense that WRAL feels that concealed carry permit holders are dangerous and that the general public needs to know? I mean, I guess I'm not I'm not connecting the dots here as to why this is newsworthy for them to have it on the webpage to begin with.
Well, Bill, that makes two of us, because that's precisely the point I've made. This information is of use to no one, okay? Unless, of course, the objective would be, at least on the part of this particular reporter, Mark Finker, that put the thing up there, unless his objective is to create an aura of fear. Ooh, your next-door neighbor might have guns. I don't know.
Well, I'll be happy to let everybody know that I do. And actually, I think that's probably a good thing. Hey, I know you're in Denver and all of that. Do you have time just to hang for a few more minutes? And I would love to get your perspective on, the fallout of what's happened in Colorado and what it all means. Do you have time, or do you have to roll?
It would be my pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Paul Valone is with us. By the way, we did send an email out and tried to contact WRAL, and if they at some point would like to come on, we would love to have them, get their perspective on this. But as a concealed carry permit holder myself, I just find this very strange, very odd, and it's very uncomfortable from my perspective. But I don't know, if maybe if you knew I was in your neighborhood, you'd move away. I don't know what your reaction would be. We'll come back with Paul Valone, 919-860-9783 if you'd like to join us. 312, time for Traffic on the Twos. 919-860-9783 if you would like to join us. You want to weigh in, you have a comment or a question for Paul. He's here, 919-860-9783. We won't keep you too much longer, Paul, because I know you're in Denver, but I would like to just clear up some things. You're a knowledgeable guy when it comes to gun facts, and the Republican mayor up in New York wants more gun control. Democrats want more gun control, and they seem to always fixate themselves on assault weapons. So I don't know how much you know about assault weapons, but can I ask you, what is the difference between a semi-automatic military rifle and a non-military semi-automatic weapon?
That's a perfect question, Bill, because the answer is nothing. I used to have a demonstration I actually did for a TV station at one point. They actually let me take guns into the station. I took a Ruger Mini 14 with a wooden stock and a 5-round magazine, perfectly configured for hunting deer. And in a space of about 20 seconds, I stripped off the stock, put on a folding stock and a 30-round magazine, and suddenly, ta-da, it's an assault weapon. The fact is that these rifles are functionally identical to what people use hunting. They have different cosmetic features, and that's basically it.
Is the bullet fired from an assault rifle more powerful than a same caliber civilian rifle?
Actually, no, it's less powerful.
It's less. I was going to ask you that.
An AR-15, for example, fires around its 5.56 millimeter, the standard NATO cartridge, and it is, in fact, designed to be a relatively light cartridge so that, frankly, people could carry more of them into combat. Heavier-duty 30-caliber cartridges went out of fashion, I guess, in the military in the 1960s.
So is it that liberals are fixated on the word assault, do you think, Paul? I mean, if, in fact, there's really no difference. In fact, most assault weapons are less powerful than, hunting rifles.
Well, actually, it's a propaganda ploy, actually, and was created originally by Josh Sugarman when he was at the Coalition to Ban Handguns. Back in the 1980s, he drafted a memo in which he delineated how the assault weapon, as they actually created that phrase, the menacing looks, coupled with the public's misunderstanding of fully automatic versus semi-automatic firearms, he said, can only increase the chances for gaining restrictions on those weapons. So actually, assault weapon is a misnomer. An assault rifle is actually a fully automatic weapon, a machine gun. And that, of course, is what the military uses, and that is what civilians cannot own, by and large, in the United States.
All right. Now, there was a gentleman, a Democrat, who came out and said since the assault weapons ban expiring in 2004, it's been open season. Do you have any stats to either prove or disprove that guy's statement?
Well, somebody just sent me a list of homicide rates, or a track of homicide rates by the Department of Justice from 1980 until 2009. And the fact is that homicides in the United States have declined dramatically over that period. So I would say the factual evidence doesn't support that position.
And the average police response time, I read, is about 6 minutes, give or take, depending on where you live in the country. Crime usually takes less than a minute. So what would your advice be for frontline defense to our listeners?
I'm sorry, what was the again question?
Well, police response time to your home, if something's happening in your house, is about 6 minutes on average throughout the country. Crimes usually take about a minute. Can the police protect you, or maybe there's some responsibility on the part of the homeowner to do something else for frontline defense? Any suggestions?
Well, as the standard joke goes, when seconds count, help is only minutes away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the fact is that when it comes down to defending yourself, there is no substitute for having the means to defend yourself, if that's a firearm, or something else if you prefer not to have a firearm, and the training to do it, and the preparation, and, frankly, some thought about laying your house out so that it doesn't tend to promote criminal predation.
Well, Paul, I appreciate what you do, and thank you for taking time today for us. I appreciate it very much, my friend.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, we'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you. Paul Valone, who's president of the North Carolina Grassroots Organization, and, of course, they got a thing going with RAL, and quite honestly, I don't understand why WRAL had to bring in a software engineer in order to create a program to put forth a program for you. I mean, are you dying to know if there's a guy with a concealed carry in your neighborhood? And if so, is this something that scares you?